Hey gang, welcome back to another video. They say sometimes you just need to step away from a problem in order to come up with a solution. So after a bit of time away, I'm ready to jump back in on this wilting flower prop and show you exactly how I was able to get it working. So let's get to it. After banging my head against the wall for a while, I decided to redesign the entire mechanism, starting with this brand new mounting plate. Just like my previous attempt, the small synchronous motor sits at the bottom and will be held in place with some 1/2-inch screws. I'll leave a complete list of parts and a link to my 3D model in the video description should you want to build one for yourself. Once the motor's in place, I can start adding in my sliding door rollers, which are held in place with a 2-inch bolt and a lock nut. I'll also add in a washer on either side of the roller wheel. These will act as both a stabilizer and a guide for the new push rod design. And speaking of the push rod, it's made up of the following lengths of 4mm by 1/2-inch flat stock aluminum. One piece at 4 1/4 inches, one at 2 inches, and the last piece is 1 3/4 inches. This length of the last piece may vary based on the location of the mounting hole on your motor, but the most important part is that the length from the bend to the end of the rod is 1 inch. And after a quick assembly, let's give it a test to make sure that there's no issues with the linkage. Okay, everything looks good, so let's proceed. The next thing I did was mark off the high and low points in the movement so that I knew where to cut this longer piece. This was filmed before determining the lengths I mentioned a moment ago, so there's no additional cutting once you've cut those pieces. This piece will also need to be left long enough to fit the platform, which I was able to salvage from my first attempt of this build. With the aluminum bar cut to length and inserted into the platform, it was time to add in the wires that will help to create the wilting effect. After receiving a ton of suggestions, I landed on using 5-inch pieces of clothes hanger wire, and I also cut back on the number of flowers from 10 to 5, which should put less stress on the motor. But before I can test that theory, I need to glue them all in place with a bit of CA glue and set them aside to cure. While I wait, I grab some aquarium tubing and this artificial flower and a few of its leaves to make my wilting bouquet by painting the tubes and gluing both the roses and leaves to the tubing. Once I was finished, I could glue them into the vase insert, which will eventually be set into the vase top, but more on that in a minute. As an added bit of security, I applied some extra glue to the outside of the tubing where it meets the insert. I figured the tubing will get the most wear and tear, and this connection will bear most of the force from the motor, so a little bit of extra glue seemed like a good idea. The bottom half of the motor mount is designed to match the interior shape of the vase, so off camera I glued it in place and ran the motor's wires out a small hole in the bottom. Now I can grab the vase top and set it into place, thread the flowers over the wires, and test everything out. After wiring my motor to an extension cord and powering it up, it looks like everything is working correctly. Now I can glue the two halves of the vase together and then give it a quick coat of paint. The final version of my model will be designed to use magnets on the lid rather than glue, just in case you need to access the mechanism for any reason. And once the paint had dried, it was time to check it out in all its wilting glory. Now there's always ways you can improve this prop, like adding weights to the flowers to increase the wilting effect, or connect it to a prop controller to get the timing just right. But for me, I think I'll leave those for another day. Well, that's going to do it for this one. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, but most importantly, go make something. They say sometimes you have to step away from a problem in order. So let's get to it. That sucked.